Welcome back to the Touchdown Black and Gold vlog, where we examine, discuss, celebrate, and honor all things college football across the entire college football landscape, but with a very special emphasis on our beloved black and gold squads of the Missouri Tigers and the Iowa Hawkeyes. Welcome back. I'm your host, as usual, Blair Parks. Holla at you, boy. It's great to be back with you here on this week's episode. And what an excellent episode I have in store for you today. This is my 2022 Missouri Tigers preview and prediction show. Super pumped and excited for this one for all of my Missouri brethren who I absolutely have a vested interest in, even though I was brought up hardcore Iowa Hawkeye, living here in the Show Me state of Missouri. I have plenty of friends and family who are fans, if not previous alums of Missouri. So that is why I absolutely named this channel Black and Gold Vlog for both of those teams. Anyway, it's great to be back with you once again. As you can tell, today I am cloaked and donned in kind of my neutral garb, represent both Iowa and Missouri for today's big time episode, but primarily, as I stated, going to focus really on Missouri first and foremost today. Before I go any further, I need to thank all of you, the Black and Gold family, all of you college football fanatics. This channel, because of your support, your time, everything is growing very rapidly. Everything, views, likes, subscriptions, comments, everything is trending up the way we want it to be, like the stock market. Thanks to everything that you do. And as always, for those of you who are tuning in for the first time, please like, share, subscribe, comment. This is a safe zone for any college football fan. Comment, let me know if you like what you hear, you dislike, if there's something I've left out, if there's a question or issue you'd like me to raise, let me know. And please feel free to spread the word. But all I ask is that if you are going to comment, is let's all be and act like the adults that we are. So thank you for all that you've done and will continue to do for this channel. It's an absolute pleasure for me to be here in front of you, sharing with you my love and my passion, my obsession with what I believe is the greatest sport spectacle and event here in this great nation of ours. And speaking of comments, want to give a quick shout out to my boy, Mayhem Matthew. He has a channel also here on YouTube. Please feel free to check it out at Matthew Mayhem. He left me a comment following last week's episode, which if you haven't seen it, I highly suggest you check it out. It is hands down my favorite episode that I've done each year, is my bold predictions for the upcoming season. But Mayhem Matthew, huge UGA fan, so congrats to you. Good luck on the upcoming season for the defending national champions. Asked me if I wanted at some point during the season or even preseason to get together to do a potential collaboration to discuss a little bit of Iowa football with me, Missouri, Georgia, and just college football in general. So hopefully we can work something out, but in the meantime, check out his channel. It's Mayhem Matthew. Very, very entertaining, especially his big-time exclusive interview with Kentucky quarterback Will Levis. Definitely think you're going to enjoy that one. But, it might be a little tough. My schedule this month coming up, really insane. The kids go back to school soon. My mother, I need to travel. She's going to have a legitimate surgery. Then Labor Day weekend, I'm involved in a wedding. I'm going to be ministering the wedding for my brother and sister-in-law. And then the week after that, I have a little surgery right around the corner. That's right. So be a little bit busy, but have no worries. You, the Black and Gold family, I will be here at least once a week for your listening and viewing pleasure. And more than likely, based on this monstrosity in front of you, it's more than likely your listening pleasure. So thanks again for Mayhem Matthew, for your love. Definitely check it out. Definitely think you're going to like it. Next, as I do my previous episodes, hey, I make mistakes. You know, this is just for fun. This is a hobby for me. I don't do any edits. I don't do any reshoots. I don't do any rehearsals. I just click, record, and download and send it. So when I do make a mistake or I put my foot in my mouth, I always humble myself in front of you, the Black and Gold family. I actually had 26 bold predictions, but unfortunately I left one out. I didn't put a number by it, so I'm going to add that today because I want to get on record. This is my additional bold prediction for the upcoming season, and that's one that is going to be as follows. So number 26, following the end of the 2022 season, Northwestern, longtime Northwestern head football coach Pat Fitzgerald will step away as head coach from Northwestern. I just think at this point, there's not much more that can happen. At Northwestern, it's already a difficult place to win and be competitive, even though Fitzy, who is my second favorite man crush in the Big Ten, has had great success there at Northwestern. But it's so difficult at a place like Northwestern and Vandy and Stanford with the academic requirements to get admitted to school, to now especially have to also fight the NIL, the transfer portal. I just think it's going to be a very rough year for Northwestern, and I think Fitzy, after accomplishing pretty much anything and everything that he has done an excellent job there in Evanston. I think he will walk away, maybe potentially to the NFL. But that's my another bold prediction when it comes down to the coaching carousel for the upcoming season. So, and the thing that, I want to get this out there because we're weeks away from week 0. And there's a big time matchup between Northwestern and Nebraska. So right there, 2 of my bold predictions could be crushed in that big time matchup. I mean, now that I've said to you that he'll walk away, and I also said one of my bold predictions was Northwestern, along with Vanderbilt and Duke, would go winless in conference play. If Northwestern wins, there goes that bold prediction. And I also said that I believe Nebraska would win enough games so Coach Scott Frost would be retained as their head football coach. If Nebraska loses that game across the pond in Dublin, Ireland, I think the hot seat for Coach Frost will be even hotter, and I do not know if they will bring him back if they open up the season with a loss to Northwestern. So, big time. I got a couple big time predictions riding on the first game out of the gate during week 0 in a couple weeks. Anyway, and also too, Coach Fitzy, he's kind of like the villain that you love to hate, but you hate to love. I mean, a great coach. I admire what he's done there, but he's been an absolute thorn in the side of Iowa since he arrived. He has. So it's like, we all have those villains that we love. Like for me, film villains, I've got Darth Vader. He's a good father after all. From Star Wars, I've got John Doe from 7. What's in the box? Basically what he's doing, he makes good arguments for doing the horrors that he commits, but still, you can't love him fully, but you understand why. Another one is Colonel Hans Landa, from Inglourious Bastards, another one of my favorite movie villains. Ends up winning the war, in a roundabout, in a dual universal way, a separate life, for the Allies by taking care of Hitler and his upper echelon. And then also you have some from television. From HBO's The Wire. You gotta love but hate Omar Little. You just do. And also from AMC's Walking Dead. Negan. You root against him, but you gotta root for him because of his backstory. Just the coolest villains. And based on that, let me know. Comment below. Let me know who or what are some of your favorite villains, whether from film, TV, literature, music, maybe even if you're a gamer. If you're a big fan of Super Mario Brothers, you're probably all about, but all against Bowser, probably, for example. So let me know down below in comments who your favorite villains are. That'd be just a fun little discussion to get going. So anyway, let's go ahead and get underway with my Missouri preview and prediction show. But before that, let me go ahead and attempt to set the mood. When the band plays the Tiger War song, and when the fray is through, we will tramp, tramp, tramp around the columns with a cheer for old Mizzou. There we go. There's my serenade for the day. So now that we've got the mood set, let's get right into today's episode. So the first part of today's episode, I want to do a quick recap of how the 2021 season went down for our Missouri Tigers. It was year 2 of the Eli Drinkowitz regime there in Como, but for all intents and purposes, it was really his first legit season. I mean, his first year was the COVID year, so without spring ball, summer camp, recruiting, it was really tough to really see or have Coach Drinkowitz and his staff put their own stamp on the roster and on the program. So last year being year 2, my preseason prediction for Missouri's schedule, I had them going 8-4, 4-4 in the SEC. I had them in 2 potential toss-up games. I was thinking about picking them to go 7-5, but the 2 toss-up games that I thought would be close was going to be the first one at Boston College and the second at home against Tennessee, which that went ugly very quickly. And we'll get to that game here in a little bit. So I actually had them winning both of those games, going 8-4 when I should have had them go 7-5. So I wasn't too off, but it could have been a little bit better. There were high expectations and a lot of buzz surrounding returning quarterback Connor Bazelak. Overall had a very good year, but issues with the line, issues with health really hampered him really making any big-time progress or leaps or bounds in the right direction. Since he now has transferred out to within the Big Ten ranks, he is now the starting quarterback at Indiana University. So unfortunately, overall they went 6-7 last season, 6-6 in the regular season, 3-5 in SEC play. They lost in a very, very highly contested, fun game to watch, the bowl game, the Armed Forces Bowl against Army. They lost 24-22 thanks to a walk-off winning field goal by Army. And overall was a really, really close game. It just came down to a classic football game. Army just made fewer mistakes. They capitalized on Missouri's mistakes, and that's what really ended up winning the game for Army. But it was a very good showing by our Missouri Tigers in the bowl game. The high point of last season had to be the walk-off OT victory in thrilling fashion against Florida in Como. They went for a 2-point conversion in the first overtime, converted, walk-off winner, drive home safe, have a good night. Great, great moment for the program. And to take down and beat one of the blue bloods in college football, and especially within the SEC East Division, even though Florida was a little bit down last season, that victory goes a long way for a program like Missouri. But also, it wasn't just simply a big win getting them to 6 wins, which got them bowl eligible. It did give them that shining moment, good victory on the season, but it also sent shockwaves and really reverberated throughout the college football landscape, especially in the SEC, but more specifically in the SEC East, Missouri's division. Because following that loss, Florida dismissed, embattled Coach Dan Mullen. He was fired, I believe, Monday morning, a couple days after the loss. So that right there opens that up to kind of maybe keep Florida down just a little bit. In comes Coach Billy Napier from Louisiana. I think he is a very good coach. but I think it's going to take him a couple of years, couple seasons to get things rolling there once again down in Gainesville in the Swamp. So, big time. I mean, just that victory meant so much in the long haul, long term of college football. And that's really just another example of what Missouri has kind of done recently. I mean, when a coach really is on the hot seat, they have kind of been that proverbial last nail in the coffin, so to speak. They have a history lately of knocking off these embattled coaches, and then within a day or two, they're fired from their current position. I mean, a couple going back to 2017, Tennessee head football coach Butch Jones, a game that I actually was at on a chilly night near the end of the season. Mizzou takes care of business, throttled them at home. They fired Butch Jones, I believe, the next day. Also in 2017, on Black Friday, Missouri travels down to Fayetteville. I think that game was played in Little Rock, but they knock off Arkansas, and current coach at the time, Brett Bielema, who's now at Illinois, was fired after that loss to Missouri. And in 2020, after knocking off Vanderbilt, which isn't really an upset or knocking off, after that loss, Vanderbilt fired then current football coach Derek Mason. So Missouri has a history of doing this by being, boom, let's just put them finally out of their misery. So that was the high point of last year's season. The low point of the season, it had to be that loss at home against the Tennessee Volunteers and first-year coach at the time, Josh Heupel, and former OC at Missouri. So that was something. I actually thought that Missouri would take care of Tennessee in that game, but final score at the scoreboard didn't really lie. 62-24 was the final. Tennessee got out to a 28-3 lead at the end of the first quarter and never looked back. I mean, kept their foot on the throttle. In that game, Missouri, their defense, more specifically their rush defense, gave up a whopping 458 yards rushing. And that's something that we're going to talk about here in a little bit moving forward into this upcoming season. So that was a quick recap of Missouri's season last year in 2021, and also the high and low points of the season. Now, next segment, let's move into the 2022. I have some areas to share with you of potential weakness and strength for this football team. What do I expect? Hey, this unit or these players will be studs. This unit, these players, these staff members could be the potential duds. So let's see what I think. Feel free, let me know what you think. Comment, like, share, subscribe, follow along with me. So now we start the year 3 of the Eli Drinkowich regime at the helm. And I've got to say this about Coach Drink. He really is knocking it out of the park. It's a grand slam. Very impressive on the recruiting trail. I mean, this year on this roster, very highly touted, very much wanted wide receiver stud from East St. Louis, local prospect, so to speak, Luther Burton has joined Missouri. He committed over the likes of Georgia and Alabama. He was an early enrollee. He's been on campus for spring ball. And also out of Georgia, I believe, highly recruited, touted quarterback Sam Horn now is finally on campus. He wasn't there for spring ball, but has now since arrived on campus. So Coach Drink is really getting it done on the recruiting trail, but it comes down to eventually we need to see that pay some dividends. I mean, we're stockholders in Missouri. We want to see a little bit of progress, and what's the kickback for us? You know, we got our hands out. So let's start off with the weaknesses and areas of concern that I have moving into this season for Missouri. First of all, to go off what I just ended my previous segment with, the low point, it's got to be the Missouri rush defense. I mean, last year they were absolutely abysmal, unwatchable at times, almost like to the point of being that bad. It's almost like you have to try to be that bad, just kind of like how Iowa's offense was at times and especially more specifically their passing offense. But at one point last year, they bottomed out. Missouri's defense against the rush was 129th out of 130 teams against the run. So, not last, but pretty much last. Mid-season, they made some coaching changes. They did get a little bit better. I'm not talking from 129th to 60th. They didn't cut anything in half, but they did get a little bit better at the second half of the season. And in that bowl game, a very, very good effort by the rush defense. Coming into that game, we all know, if you're familiar with college football, that Army, like the other academy schools, runs the triple option. They came into that game, I believe, second in the country in rush yards per game. The Missouri defense held them well under that average and actually held them under their average they gave up the second half of the season. So definitely was some improvement on that side of the ball, but it's got to be better. I mean, at times last year, opposing running backs would run through, run over, run around any Missouri tackler. The rush defense was just awful. Bantha fodder at times when it came down to it. Unwatchable. Just was. Once again, just like the Iowa passing offense. But, their D-line just couldn't win or hold the point of attack. They've got to work on that this year. Poor tackling at times, broken assignments, guys out of position. Definitely have got to clean that up. If you're giving up 300, 350 yards a game rushing, it's going to be tough to walk away with a victory. It just is. So definitely have got to shore up that rush defense this season. Definitely is an area of concern for me, but hopefully they'll keep trending in the right direction. I don't expect them to go from giving up 350 to 100 yards a game. We would take that as fans, but that's way unrealistic expectations. Just a little bit at a time. You have to get more sound in your rush defense. Another area of concern for me is they're going to have to replace their do-all, do-everything ultimate weapon in their super back, their running back, Tyler Beatty, who's now off to the NFL, and they need to replace his 1,604 rushing yards and 18 total touchdowns. Where is that production going to come from Missouri? Tyler Beatty was the ultimate security valve for Connor Bazelak last year. The check down so many time and time again, coming out of the backfield for a little dump down, turn it upfield, keep the chains moving. And that was really the most vital part of Tyler Beatty last year. Yes, rushing all over defenses for 1,600 plus yards, as I stated. That was something. But just what he meant for this offense to keep them on the field and keep those wheels turning. They're going to have to find, a player or several players to get into those shoes very quickly. But there is a positive to that, is they do have a very crowded running back room. A lot of guys have some experience, so there is cause to be a concern for that, but also there is potential there. Just have a couple guys replace one. You can do that. Just kind of like Moneyball. When Billy Bean, Brad Pitt's character, is trying to simply, hey, we need to replace Jeremy Giambi, but guess what? There is no replacing one man. Let's find three guys who can replace one that we can afford, that we can have on our roster. Same concept. The other thing is, my last area of concern and maybe weakness is, right now, Missouri needs to settle on a starting quarterback. It really comes down to who wants it, who's going to win it, and who will step up. It seems like to me that Brady Cook will be the starter. It seems that way to most, but there's a lot of echoes, a lot of talk, a lot of rumor out of camp, out of campus, that they're not really quite set on a starting quarterback. But from last year's bowl game, which was Brady Cook's first ever start, Connor Bazelak was hurt with an injury. In comes Brady Cook, almost leads Missouri to the victory. He looked very good in the bowl game and has had all spring, summer, and now fall to work with the full first team. I think ultimately he will be their starting quarterback. And he looked really, really good in the bowl game. The only really mistake or bad throw he made was when Missouri scored a touchdown. They tried to go for 2 to get up 3 on Army. Little play action rollout. Back of the end zone, his receiver is wide open, but he floats it out of bounds. That's okay. That was the only really bad throw he made that entire game. And any quarterback will tell you, not being me, I was never athletic enough to be a quarterback or intelligent enough. Thank you. I wasn't. But any quarterback will tell you the hardest throw to make is when a guy is wide open like his receiver was on that failed 2-point conversion. So that's my areas of weakness and concern for Missouri. Once again, like, share, comment, subscribe. Now the areas of strength. These are going to be the benefits for this year's team, the 2020 Missouri Tigers. First is going off what I just said. There is a lot of depth in that quarterback room. There's 3 guys who have some experience. You've got Brady Cook, Tyler Macon, Jack Abraham, and highly recruited quarterback Sam Horn, who I mentioned earlier in this episode. So you do have a lot of warm bodies, a lot of guys who are able to step in, and 3 out of the 4 have a lot of experience. Jack Abraham transferred in from, I believe, Southern Miss, had decent numbers. So a crowded quarterback room is better than having a pencil-thin quarterback room. So I think that actually will end up being a strength for Missouri. And each one of these quarterbacks brings something a little bit different, but they are a little bit similar. I mean, all of these guys are they are a little bit fleet of foot. They can turn it upfield and make things happen. So we'll see. I definitely think that quarterback room will be ultimately a strength. Now, I'm not saying, all SEC, all American, Heisman contenders, nothing like that. Don't put words in my mouth. Do you understand the words coming out of my mouth? Don't be doing that. But I think it will be a strength for this Tigers team. Another area of strength and benefit will be the defensive backfield. Especially strong safety Martez Manuel comes back. He was second on last year's team with 77 tackles. I think he will continue to be a big-time hard hitter. Seems to always be in the right place at the right time when he needs to be. And free safety, Jalen Carlisle, last year's leader on the team with interceptions with 4, also comes back this season. I think he'll continue to be a ball hawk there in the backfield. So I think their defensive backfield will be a big-time strength for this team. And also, I've got to mention this. I mean, their kicker. I'm an Iowa fan, okay? So if you watch Iowa football, you know that punting and kicking for us is an extension of our defense, which is solid each and every year. We love our special teams in Iowa City. And the Missouri kicker named Harrison Mevis, the thicker kicker. I love that nickname. Absolute strength. I mean, this guy is almost automatic. I mean, listen to his stats from last year. 23 of 25 field goals, good, only missed 2, and he was perfect with point after touchdown attempts. So he absolutely will be a big-time benefit and strength for this team. And I'm calling it right now. I think he himself will win them at least 1, if not 2 games. If you need him to kick you 3, 4, 5 field goals in a game, I think he can do that. And I think early in the year, the first half, that might be needed while they're breaking in a quarterback and a running back by committee. So I definitely expect big things from Harrison Mevis, their stud kicker. And last but not least, I think the biggest strength for this Missouri football team, both literally and physically, will be their offensive line. Their offensive line returns 4 starters from last year's team, both tackles and guards. Yes, they are going to be breaking in a new center, but this offensive line is big, veteran. They have a lot of starts amongst each other. I think this will be their biggest strength on this team this year. And they might need that, as I mentioned, breaking in new running backs, initially having running back by committee, or if that's how Coach Drink wants to roll the entire season, it's going to be needed to have a good offensive line. So those are my strengths and weaknesses for the 2022 Missouri Tigers football team. Let me get a quick swig of water. Thank you once again for everything you do. Please like, share, subscribe, comment, rate. Let me know what you think. All right. Next segment, I want to share with you some of who I project is going to be the key players and potential breakout players on the 2022 Missouri Tigers football team. Let's start with my key players. On offense, I already mentioned how I think that offensive line is going to be big time, buku important, and buku big. I'm going to go with left tackle Javon Foster. He's got to protect the blind side for whatever quarterback Missouri has in there, and he's proven that he can do that. I mean, last year he only allowed 1 sack from the blind side. So left tackle Javon Foster is my first key player. And my second key player on offense is wide receiver Barrett Bannister. Now, last season, Bannister didn't have great numbers. But when he was on the field, the way he runs his routes, he's sneaky, clean, and crisp. And what I mean by that is he absolutely is and needs to be and can be Missouri's hands guy, the possession receiver, the guy who just keeps the change moving, first down after first down. I mean, I have this argument, this discussion with some of my friends, my buddies, family members who are more NFL fans, which I am not, but still, we always have discussed the greatest receiver in history. Who would you want to have if you could throw one ball to one receiver? Mostly it's Jerry Rice, but me, because I'm all about possessions and hands guys, I'll take Chris Carter 9 times out of 10. I just will. And that's what Barrett Bannister reminds me of. He's the hands guy, the possession receiver for Missouri, and they're going to need him to step up, and I think he will do absolutely that for this year's Tigers team. So keep 2 eyes out, or in my case, 4 eyes, for Javon Foster and Barrett Bannister. Now on defense, a couple of my key players. On defense, I've got to mention 2 guys. The senior linebacker duo on the Missouri Tigers defensive unit. This is going to be a strong unit. They're linebackers. Both Chad Bailey and Devin Nicholson are back. Multiple year starters there at the linebacker position, which that's going to be huge, especially if Missouri has struggles this season or initially struggles with the rush defense. These 2 guys are going to have to do a lot of cleanup and tackling at the line of scrimmage, but I think they both are capable of doing exactly that. So, look out for those 2 stud linebackers, that duo of Bailey and Nicholson. Also, I've got another dynamic duo for you on defense. I've got the defensive ends, both Isaiah McGuire, who's big, and I'm talking 6'4", 272 pounds big. And on the other side, the other defensive end is Trajan Jeffcoat. Both these guys are seniors. I expect these guys to get after opposing quarterbacks. And last season's team, Isaiah McGuire did lead the team in sacks. And as I just mentioned, he's back for this season. So I expect big things from those 2 starting defensive ends, that senior duo. So keep an eye, 4 eyes, 2 eyes, 4 eyes out on both of those duos of linebackers and defensive ends on the defensive side of the ball. Now, my breakout players. I've got 2. These are guys, and I know a lot of you are expecting that I'm going to say wide receiver, 5-star Luther Burton. I'm not. I definitely believe that he will get on the field. He will get reps. I don't expect him to start the season initially. Perhaps by the end of the year, will he be starting? I can see that. He definitely will see the field because, quite frankly, a guy this highly recruited and wanted and touted has got to get on the field, because now that we live in the age of the transfer portal, that, hey, if I ain't starting, I'm departing. And this guy will leave if he doesn't see the field. So he will have an impact, but I don't think it's going to be a huge impact since he still is a true freshman. So I'm not going to say Luther Burden's not one of my official breakout players. The first one I've got is quarterback Brady Cook. I already said this episode, I believe he is their best option. Right now, he is their best quarterback, and I think at the end of the season, he will show that he is the best quarterback on their roster. Sam Horn might get on the field, I don't know, but when you have 4 quarterbacks in your room, Sam Horn, their incoming stud freshman recruit, may end up just taking a red shirt. Don't quite know how that's going to play out yet. We'll have to just wait and see. But I think he will, him being Brady Cook, will become the unquestioned starter of this team. And I like his game. He's got a crisp throw, a quick release, and if things break down, he can turn it upfield. I think Coach Drink will utilize his legs a little bit on some called quarterback keepers and draws. Last year, Connor Bazelak just was not fleet of foot, and that really got him into trouble a lot. And trust me, there's a lot of that going on with our black and gold squads, because Spencer Petras, Iowa's quarterback, same thing. Carbon copy of Connor Bazelak when it comes down to just not being mobile enough to make things happen or to get yourself out of trouble when that happens. Now, my second breakout player, and it's crazy that I have to say this, I've already brought him up once this episode, but I'm going to say it again. My breakout player, my second and last breakout player, is once again kicker Harrison Mevis. Last year, as I said, 23 of 25 on field goal attempts, long tying field goal that tied the game at the end against Boston College, put that game into overtime. BC came out on top on a really, really good game, and Mevis was perfect once again on point after touchdown attempts. The thicker kicker, I think this guy is going to have an absolute monster season. I already said I think he's going to win them at least 1, if not 2 games off the strength and talent of his foot. But I'm saying right now that Harrison Mevis, and I should have made this one of my bold predictions, but I definitely think he will at least be a Lou Groza Award winner finalist this season, which goes annually to college football's best kicker. I think he will at least be a finalist for the Lou Groza Award, if not bring home the hardware himself. So that's my second breakout player, kicker Harrison Mevis. Once again, like, share, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think. All right. So my final segment today is my schedule breakdown and my predictions for how this season is going to go for our Missouri Tigers. So without further ado, let's get right on it. First of all, I wanted to share with you what I believe is their most important game this season on their schedule. Yes, Georgia and Florida will always be big games because for Mizzou to consistently be a player in the SEC East, you don't have to beat both of those heavyweights, but you have to at least beat one of them every year. So those 2 games are huge every year, Georgia and Florida. But I think this year on their schedule, their most important game is a home game on November 5th against Kentucky. And here's why. Kentucky really is that team that has been steadily rising within the SEC East. I mean, they've been very consistent since Coach Mark Stoops arrived. You know what you're going to get from Kentucky. I mean, much like Iowa. I mean, I've called Kentucky Iowa South. I mean, the Iowa ties, Mark Stoops played football at Iowa. So you know what they're going to do. They have a culture. They have an identity. They're going to give you 7, 8, 9 wins a year. That's what they're going to do. And lately, they have absolutely owned Missouri. They have had the Tigers' number. Kentucky has won 4 of the last 5 against Missouri and 2 of the last 3 in Como. But the thing is, these have been such close games. And to prove that, in those 5 games, the average margin of victory has been single digits, 9 points. So Missouri has to get over the hump. And I think this year, most everybody is expecting Kentucky to beat Missouri in Como, but I'll tell you here shortly what I believe. But this is absolutely their biggest game. They need to first consistently beat Kentucky. And I'm not being a Kentucky hater. I absolutely respect Coach Stoops and the Kentucky program. I mean, they do it right. I love what they do. But Missouri has to start to at least be able to beat them at least every second or third year. They have to do that if they do want to climb the ranks of the SEC East players. So that's, to me, the biggest game this season, that home game against Kentucky, and I do plan on being at that game this year. Now, next, before I break down the schedule, I want to give you my key stretch of games in this season, and I picked 4. Now, the key stretch, and this is what I believe is going to either make or break Missouri's season. And overall, Vegas and all the so-called experts don't really think very highly of our Tigers this season. When you look at different betting sites, Vegas has primarily Missouri winning 5.5 games, 5, 6, but I've seen primarily they've got Missouri at 5.5. And I absolutely believe they will eclipse that. That was one of my bold predictions. If you watched last episode, I always give you my best bet win totals for a few teams. And I said, if I were a betting man, which I'm not, to absolutely take Missouri over 5.5. I do believe they will get to at least 6 wins. So here's the key stretch of games to where if they can split, I think they will absolutely exceed expectations. The key stretch. First game is at home against Vanderbilt, then they're at South Carolina, home against Kentucky, and then at Tennessee. Now, those 4 games, none of them are absolute give-me's, but Vanderbilt should be a victory. I'm counting that as a victory. All they really need to do, they have to win at least one of those games, and hopefully that'll be Vandy or somebody. But if Missouri can just go 2-2, if they can split those 4 games, they'll have a solid season. Not a great season, but they'll have a solid season. So just try to split those 4 games. So that's my key stretch of games for Missouri this season. Now let's get down to how I see the schedule playing out. And like I did last season, I'm going to give you 3 different perspectives and outlooks. I'm going to give you my official win-loss projection, what I see the absolute ceiling being for Missouri, and the absolute floor for the Tigers. So my official schedule projection for wins and losses, I have Missouri going 7-5, 3-5 in the SEC. I have them victories. I have them defeating Louisiana Tech, winning at Kansas State, against Abilene Christian, home against Vanderbilt, and home against Kentucky, home against New Mexico State, and Black Friday at home against Arkansas. So the losses I have for my official projection, I have them losing at Auburn, home against Georgia, at Florida, at South Carolina, and at Tennessee. And there's 4 toss-up games I have. I look at 4 games that really could potentially go either way on this year's Missouri schedule. I have first toss-up game being at Kansas State, and the second being at Auburn, the second being at third being at South Carolina, and the fourth being at home against Arkansas. But I do think when I average those, I think 7-5, 3-5 within conference is where they will finish. Now, let's look at where I have Missouri as far as, hey, let's say some of these toss-up games go their way. This is where I see the absolute ceiling being for the Missouri Tigers this season. I have them potentially going 8-4, 4-4 in SEC play, with wins against Louisiana Tech, at K-State, Abilene Christian, at Auburn, Vandy, Kentucky, New Mexico State, and Arkansas, with losses being against Georgia, at Florida, at Tennessee, at South Carolina. So 8-4 is where I see them topping out at. Now, things can always change that based on elements the day of the game, if there's major injuries, either for or against Missouri, opponents' injuries per se. So a lot can change, but that's what I think is their best possible outcome is 8-4. Now, the opposite of that, so for every high, there is a low. I've got now, lastly, my projected floor for this football team to where, hey, if everything plays out, no major injuries, this is where at least they can get. Here is the lowest they can get. I have them going 5-7, 2-6 within SEC play, which would get me below the 5.5 win total that I just told you about, but I'm very, very confident that Missouri will get to 6 wins. So the projected floor, their wins I have against Louisiana Tech, Abilene Christian, Vanderbilt, New Mexico State, and Arkansas, with losses being at K-State, at Auburn, Georgia, at Florida, at South Carolina, at Tennessee, and Kentucky. So that's what I've got down when I look at Missouri's schedule for the 2022 season. So that's it. That wraps up today's very special episode, the 2022 Missouri Tigers preview and predictions show. Once again, thank you for all that you do. Much love, much respect. I got nothing but love for you. All of you, thank you for your time, your support, your attention. Please like, share, subscribe, comment. Let me know how you're doing. And next week, this is what's on board for the Touchdown Black and Gold vlog. Big time, super episode next week is my big predictions episode. That's right. Next week, I will share with you, the Black and Gold family, and all of you college football fans alike, who I think will meet up in the conference title games, who will win each conference, who I think will win the national title. I've already given you, during my bold predictions episode, my 4 teams who I think will be in the college football playoff field. And I also will give you my Heisman Trophy winner, because I've already shared with you who my finalists are. So big time episode next week. So definitely be on the lookout for that. I would expect that either Wednesday or Thursday of next week. So thank you. So thank you once again for joining me on this very special episode of the Touchdown Black and Gold vlog. Until next week, hang in there, stay safe, stay healthy, and as always, peace, love, prosperity, and I'll see you next week. Take care. Bye-bye.